That's the fourth pattern we're going to learn. It is by far the most difficult. It takes a lot of thinking power to make sure we practice our thinking through how which note we and which finger we use to pluck which string in the pattern. Like anything else, once you get the pattern down, it will stay with you, and it is really, really a good pattern to force yourself to think about which string you are plucking in which order, in the sequence, before or after the other notes. It's not a finger picking pattern that is used real often. I think the song that I most often think of when I think of a finger picking pattern like this, called the Travis, I think of the song from Paul Simon, The Boxer. That you can hear that particular picking pattern quite clearly. In any event, I will show you how we're playing that because now we are rotating our thumb. Every other note is a bass note, and then we're rotating between the three tenor strings, the G, the B, and the high E. It does require, since we're using all 6 strings, to make sure each note that you're picking is in the scale tones of that chord. It does mean it's essential to play the full 6 strings using this picking style. So using the full chord so that your low E string is playing a correct note that's in the chord is vital, or else we end up picking up a note that's outside of the scale tones of each chord. So here we go. I'm going to form a full C, which means that I actually have my ring finger on my left hand is on my G bass note. So I can pick all of my strings, and every note will be in the chord. To start the pattern, we're hitting, again, we're starting, in this particular case, we're starting on the root note, which is the C. This is one time when you'll start the picking pattern on the A string, the second string, regardless if it's the root note to the chord or not. We will get the root note of the chord as we pick through the bass notes, but in often case, you'll find that when we start with the A string, that note on that string might not be the root note of that chord. So for example, I'm starting with a C, and my C bass root note is on my A string, and the pattern is the bass note on the C, then 1, and then my bass note on the D string, and then my B string gets picked, and then my bass note, and then my high E string. So it sounds. So you'll hear in the bass tones, you'll hear, and every other note is a tenor note. Your fingers are going. And it works. When I go to the F chord, in this particular case, my first note is actually on my A string, which instead of being an F is the C. The bass F note is in there, but when I start picking out that pattern, I start always on the A string. In this case, it's a C note. And then to play my G, I'm just sliding my F up. My bar, it's the E-shaped bar chord. So to have the sound good, it is essential to keep in mind that you need to be playing, when we're playing all 6 strings, every one of those notes in those 6 strings needs to be a tone that's in the scale tones of the C, or of the chord that you're playing. So in any event, it's a little harder to play this pattern. One, because there is no skipping notes in your chord. You need to play full 6-string chords. And the pattern is a little complicated. It's actually merging two patterns. It's this bass pattern, and it's this tenor pattern going. So quite honestly, it's a very, very difficult picking pattern, and I'll honestly say it's a picking pattern that I don't use often. Probably more common if I'm playing perhaps some folk music, but it is a tremendous pattern to learn, because when we're done, when you've learned these patterns and have them down, you'll get so used to having your fingers on the correct strings. And we'll end up moving our hands differently. We'll end up doing some things that will reach a little outside of these. We'll start blending two different finger patterns together in the same song. But we'll be so used to knowing that our fingers are in the right place and picking out the notes that they want. See my hand always, regardless of what I'm. My hand always goes back to this form. Thumb is on a bass note. 3 fingers are on the top 3 tenor strings, the G, the B, the E, and my pinky always stays right on the guitar. That wraps this one up, so you've got the hardest one down. This will take time. It's not an easy thing to do. You can do it, but it does take a lot of concentration and certainly a lot of time. Stay tuned for my next video. Thanks.